It's Brian Wilson alongside Larry O'Connor.
And right now, we've got Fox News national security analyst KT McFarland. KT, something happened to me Sunday night when I was on a flight back from Los Angeles visiting my kids out on the West Coast, and I thought to myself, I can't wait for Wednesday when I get to ask KT McFarland about this.
What happened?
Well, the flight crew pulled me aside. They knew that I was a member of the media, and they told me a harrowing story. There was fear in their eyes, telling me about what they believe was a dry run for a terrorist attack on a flight out of Dulles going to LAX. It involved a Middle Eastern man who had a complete, perfect duplicate boarding pass, and he boarded the plane with that duplicate. They caught him, but they believed that this was somebody who was testing the system. We saw the other story last week from the pilots union talking about what they described as a dry run. We have this story out of Los Angeles with the dry ice bombs. It looks to be a disgruntled employee, but it really raises the hair on your arms. I got to ask you, these dry runs, is it a coincidence? Is there still a threat, and do you think that the government is taking this threat seriously?
Of course there's still a threat. And I anticipate the threat will ramp up as we have negotiations with Iran. They don't go well. They go well. There's just an awful lot of moving pieces on the chessboard, so I'm not in the least bit surprised. But the surprise for me is, what are we doing about it? I have for years railed that we are making a big mistake with the way our whole anti-terrorism approach has happened, particularly with the airlines, is we are still using the same sort of system that we had on September 12th, right, or September 15th. We're all taking our shoes off. Mm-hmm. We're all doing strips. We're not taking, hairspray. We're not taking bottles of water. And is that system really the best system? We have decided that we are going to treat everybody alike. So on that United Airways Airlines memo that you're talking about, that was a flight that was supposedly from Reagan National to Orlando. Okay?
Right.
That's Granny taking the kids to Disney World. And are we still treating Granny and the kids on the way to Disney World the same way we're treating guys, of a certain terrorist profile who have been to regions of the world where we know there are training camps? And they've come multiple times. They're doing strange and weird things. We're still treating everybody the same. Now, that may be nice in the sense of political correctness, but it's foolish because it means that resources that we could be using to focus on the 2% that fit a terrorist profile are the resources that we're spreading over 100%. I'm not saying racial profiling. I'm saying terrorist profiling because it's a very different thing.
Well, in that regard, we now have Abu Anas al-Libi, this al-Qaeda suspect that was nabbed in a Libyan raid. He's back in the United States after they had him on a ship for a while, apparently trying to get any actionable intelligence out of him. Do you agree with this policy or disagree with this policy of bringing him back to the United States for trial?
I think there are two issues here. One, when we interrogate somebody, people are confused. They think, well, you interrogate them, they don't get their rights, that information is used against them. No, there are two kinds of interrogation going on. One is the interrogation you give him before you read him his Miranda rights. That interrogation our intelligence communities can use, but they can't. That is not admissible in a court of law.
Right, absolutely.
So that's where we should have spent our time and focus. What's the rush to get this guy to justice? We have a speedy system. Forget about it. Once he's read his Miranda rights, anything he says is held against him. So I would have kept him far longer, debriefed him. It's not a debriefing where you say, tell me what you know in the next 7 minutes. It's you go back to him. You don't torture him, but you go back to him and you say, look, do you recognize this picture? Then you take that picture and you go to other operatives that you know information. Then you go back to the guy a second time. You go back to him a third time. You ask, do you know anything about this? What do you know about that? That information cannot be used against him. He has every incentive for cooperating at that point.
All right, but did they have enough time on that ship to get all that they should have gotten out of him? Well, my opinion is no.
I could have interrogated my teenage children about what they did last weekend in that amount of time and gotten a straight answer.
All right. And meanwhile, when we're bringing this guy in for, his court date, does that also raise the terror alert here? I mean, this is going to become a show trial in some respects, and we know that our enemies in the war on terror, they love publicity. They love symbolic gestures. Are we more vulnerable because we brought him in for this for this trial?
I live in New York. And I can tell you that the people, especially the people in lower Manhattan, the people who use the subways, the people who are out and about in the streets, just got a big X put on their backs. Because, as you say, The Al-Qaeda would love nothing more than a major terrorist incident while all cameras in the world are tuned into the trial for alLibi.
Can I shift to Israel real fast? You mentioned Iran, and it looks like Iran is really trying to drag these potential negotiations or discussions about their nuclear program out. Of course, if you believe the president, you know that he believes that they are only looking at a alternate source of power, even though they're sitting on all that oil out there in the desert. Prime Minister Netanyahu warned the world, don't even walk down this road. Right. This is a trap. Is anyone listening to Bibi?
The whole thing is this is a three-way marriage, okay? There's a United States and Iran are having negotiations. Iran has in its mind. It wants to have the sanctions dropped, and it wants to master the fuel cycle, which is code for we want to get all the way to a bomb. Not maybe all the way to have one on the shelf, but all the way to where we can have a breakout capability to build one in a matter of months. And so that's going to be the deal. And that, I think, President Obama is looking for. They'll verify it and all the rest, but Iran will have the breakout capability. Every president in his 6th year of an 8-year term is in trouble at home. Things don't look good. He's starting to think about his legacy.
Yeah.
And so what do they do? Every president, Nixon, LBJ, Clinton, Jimmy Carter, they all look for something overseas to point to as a success.
Yeah.
And so the Iranians know this president really wants a deal.
All right, Katie McFarland, thank you so much.
On any terms.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Katie, always good to have you, even though you don't always make us feel positive about...
Yeah, you taking any more planes? Here's the good news. The silver lining,
yes.
They knew who you were.
That's right. On the plane, yeah, that's
right.
Exactly.
We look for those glimmers everywhere we can.
They looked at me and said, based on you're on the radio based on that face, right? Yeah, thanks for that. Katie McFarland, of course, is on television.
That's right.
So I'll leave that statement stand as it is.
Always a pleasure, KT. Thanks.